Hey, what's up guys? Tukey here, back again with another video. This time though with something a little bit different. Now, to disappoint some of you right up front, no, this is not the start of a new Dynasty Mode series on NCAA Football 13, but it is in a way a continuation of the Hindsight series. Late last year, early this year, I was in the habit of playing some older hockey games, trying to see what they had done well in comparison to NHL 19 and seeing, oh, okay, this feature would be really cool. They should bring that back. I think the main video that stuck out for that series was NHL 2K10, and to me, what a hidden gem that ended up being. I've been playing the hell out of this game on Twitch, and there is no doubt in my mind that taking a major aspect of this mode, retweaking it, or tweaking it in general, and adding it to the EA NHL franchise would be absolutely tremendous. So what we are talking about today is the recruiting phase of this game and how I feel like a system similar to this would make free agency that much more interesting and engaging in NHL moving forward. So to explain how this works, of course, in college football there is no trading. So what you do is you compete with every other school in the nation as you battle it out to try and sign all of the best players. Now, of course, smaller schools are going to have trouble signing players, specifically those here on the top 100 list. So Edward Joseph is considered the best prospect in the nation. He has committed to Notre Dame. As you can see, some of the other teams that were in for him, some big schools there, Texas, LSU, Auburn, Nebraska, Oregon. There was some tough competition for that guy. Now, the reason as to why they had secured his commitment, there could be a couple of different reasons for that, and that's what we're going to go over. To do so, let's take a look at Lawrence Edwards. It is a quarterback that we are in for, and that barring a miracle, we are going to have committed, or recruited to our school. He is going to commit to our school barring a miracle. As you can see, we are the #1 team on the top schools board. So basically consider this an offers page, right? You can see the other teams that are in for him: South Carolina, USC, Texas, and LSU, but we are miles ahead. A good range, for example, is if you're within like 400 points, you still might have a chance. There's no doubt he is going to sign here. Now, the reason as to why he is going to sign here. Now, some players can automatically be interested in joining your team, but when you're talking to a player, you have different categories that you can pitch a player on. Of course, right now, play style, playing time, proximity to home, stuff like that. So for each player, they will have a different importance rating down the middle, just how important that aspect of what you provide is to that player. And on the right, we also have our grades. So in terms of the playing style, what we do does not really match up to what Lawrence Edwards does, but in terms of the playing time we could provide him, we are a top-notch school for him if he wanted to be able to play. And then, of course, how important is play time for him? Average as compared to him wanting to be successful. That is arguably the most important aspect to him, although in this instance, it's actually academic prestige where he, cares the most, and we also have a pretty good grade. So you can kind of see where I'm going with this in terms of how this could translate to free agency in NHL. So for example, rather than, of course, say, let's go with campus lifestyle, which would not affect someone in the NHL, you could replace that with how important it is for them to make a lot of money. Just how big of a factor is money for you, right? Proximity to home. Say, for example, take Ryan Miller as a real life, I guess we'll go with example. That is the right word, I just couldn't think of it. Take Ryan Miller as a real life example where it was kind of known he wanted to go to a California team. Of course, he ends up in Vancouver after, getting traded to St. Louis. And then, shockingly, he signs with Anaheim. So he can be in California, closer to his wife, who works in Los Angeles. If I'm not mistaken, at least that was the case at the time. So, say Edwards is in the same situation. Maybe not proximity to home, but maybe he would prefer to be on the West Coast. It would be that much more difficult for an East Coast team to negotiate. So say you're the Boston Bruins, you want to talk to Ilya Kovalchuk, but Kovalchuk has his heart set on going out west to Los Angeles. Odds are Kovalchuk will. Now, you do have the ability to try and influence their opinion a little bit. We'll get into that in a second. But just viewing something like this, right, as far as Okay, if we're talking from an NHL perspective, you know, say it's Boston and Toronto battling it out. The Bruins might have a more defensive style, maybe a bit more physical, whereas the Leafs are full on offense. So say you're talking to John Tavares, you know, he would have a different grade and different importance, and every player is different. So you can't get every player that you want. There are certain aspects. Basically, in free agency right now, it's just, well, throw money at the guy and hope for the best. Whereas with this, you would have the ability to be able to cater to what certain players want. It would give players more personality. I don't know. Just the idea of that gets me excited beyond all beyond all comprehension, really, considering it's a video game. But what a change that would be. And again, you see a lot of these categories. Some of them wouldn't necessarily translate, but that doesn't mean you have to copy over all of them. You can, you know, you could change things up there. Stadium atmosphere, though, is a good one that could stick. You know, maybe they want to play for a bigger market team, like a New York or a Toronto, as opposed to an Arizona or a Florida Panthers, for example. Coaching stability, that would be nice if we had the ability to hire and fire coaches, I would say. But you can see how a lot of these would translate, and I just can't help but just want this so much for NHL. And then you have the ability, of course, to talk to these players. And this is, of course, where you end up finding out what they're interested in. So right now, television exposure, I don't know how interested Lawrence Edwards is in that aspect. So I can find how important that is to him, and you can see on the bottom left there, it is the least important thing to him. He does not care about being on television, right? But what he does care about is academic prestige. So I can make the pitch. Basically, you get points, you know, depending on how important that is to him and your grade. So playing time, for example, right? Again, I can sway the importance to try and make that go from average to above average, or I can just make the pitch and I end up with a certain amount of points. So we gain 73 points for that. I also have the ability, if my grade, now you see South Carolina B-, if I have a higher grade than another team that's in the running, I can essentially trash talk them and say, why would you go there? We're so much better at this. And I not only gain interest, but he loses interest in another school. It is an outright battle, and while this is going on, the other teams that are interested in him are doing the same damn thing. Not to mention, you can make promises to those players based off of playing time, success, not signing another player. So you know how in NHL, in the morale system, where you have a backup goalie, but then you trade for another backup goalie, and that guy's like, why'd you get someone in the same position as me? Well, you can make a promise to not to, and then if you break it, he'd get that much more pissed, right? This system, while very simple, the tug-of-war aspect of battling it out with other teams to try and secure these players is more addicting than I ever would have thought it would have been. And like I said, we are so far ahead. So here, for example, again, I'd compare us and South Carolina just to try and win out there. Prospect's choice is just him talking about a random aspect, you know, one of these different deals here. So for example, right, as far as what I would look to do, while technically we have a B- in conference prestige, I wouldn't talk to him about it because it's not going to make a difference. But with the C+ grade, which with coach stability, making the pitch isn't going to get me much right now, but I can try to sway importance, get that up to above average, and then make the pitch to him next week, or if this was NHL free agency, the next day. And unfortunately, he refused to change his mind. But there you see. So at the end of this recruiting week, we have our points. So we gained 258 points. Other teams will, of course, gain points. And we also took away 58 points from South Carolina. So by the time next week rolls around, again, that will be updated. But odds are, by the time next week rolls around, he's going to commit to signing with us. It's just a neat, simple, back-and-forth system that adds a little bit more to this mode in particular. And again, I can't help but think that if you were to add this to franchise mode, this little bit of a back-and-forth, you'd be sold. Hell, you could even add this to a deadline day where you have to try and convince a player, say, to waive a no-trade clause or whatever. For example, right, Mark Stone being traded to Vegas. First thing that had to happen was the Senators and Golden Knights, obviously, signing a deal, but then that deal was contingent on Mark Stone signing an extension. So then you could go into, okay, let's talk to Mark Stone, see if we can work this out. Not to mention, having those aspects, having this whole pitch info deal be a part, I mean, just, I like this, I want this, I want to know your opinion. Do you agree? Do you like the way free agency is right now in NHL? It's just, here you go, here's money. I want to see it be more involved than this. And this is such a simplistic system from a game that came out in 2012. It's an EA game as well. I don't know why we can't have this. In terms of like the amount of time and effort, the resources or whatever that it would take to add something like this to franchise mode, maybe I'm wrong. Doesn't seem overly complicated. It's not, I mean, in a way it might be asking to, you know, to put in a decent amount of effort, but the benefit of something like this, I don't know. Maybe it's just wishful thinking. I don't want to rant and ramble too long. I just wanted to showcase that to you guys. I got other stuff I got to record. Thank you for watching, though. Again, intrigued to know your opinions, and I will see you guys later in another video, or if not, never. That's okay. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.